of the Lord as we look at our Sunday school lesson for this week. We completed our fall quarter last Sunday, and that was a quarter all about love. It was a good Sunday school book. You might want to hold on to it if you haven't thrown it away already. And the quarter before that, we talked about wisdom. And our lesson for this quarter deals with callings and responses to the call. And today we're going to look at Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 6, and 16 and 17, and Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Matthew traces Jesus' ancestry all the way back to Abraham. He takes us through 42 generations on a physical side. The old preachers used to love to talk about Jesus came down through 42 generations. So we'll learn about that. Hebrews connects us to Jesus on the spiritual side, declaring that Jesus is truly the Son of God. Both of these scriptures teach us that God has always had a way of communicating with his people. In days of old, he communicated through prophets. And our lesson lets us know that, but after Jesus came, his communication was through Jesus. The prophets' messages were incomplete because they didn't know the end of the story. Jesus' message is complete because he knows how the end will come. Matthew was a disciple of Jesus, and he grew up in the Jewish faith, so he knew how the Jewish people think. And he approached his teachings from that angle. The Hebrew writer, the authorship of that book, we're not quite sure because it's not signed and there's no indication who the author is. But there are those theologians who believe that it was written by a woman, more precisely Priscilla, the wife of Aquila. We're just throwing that out there. Not necessarily a fact, but it is a belief. When we look at today's lesson in chapter 1 of Matthew, he lets us know that he starts out with the book of the generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. And Matthew comes down through the 42 generations to get to Christ. As we look at the lesson today, he names all of these people who preceded Christ. And we can trace that all the way back to the establishment of the Jewish nation. And as we look at Matthew, he brings us all the way down to verse 16 where he says, "And Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ." He has traced the ancestry of Jesus all the way down through his parents, his earthly parents. And so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David unto the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. And from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations, which gives us the 42 generations. So Matthew talks about the human and the physical connection of Jesus to God. But the Hebrew writer comes at it from a different angle as we look at Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1. God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken to us by his Son. He lets us know that God has always had a way of communicating. But the prophets, again, didn't know the whole story. But Jesus knows the whole story. And he says that Jesus hath appointed heir of things, by whom also he made the worlds. Jesus was there in the beginning when God created the worlds. And being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, the closest that they could get to seeing God was seeing Jesus. And Jesus was shining brightly with his glory, letting us know that he is the Son of the Father, and upholding all things by the word of his power. Jesus, the Son of God, sustained all things when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the Majesty on high. He came to earth, he fulfilled his mission. He died, rose again, and returned to the heavens to sit on the right hand of the Father, because that was his rightful position. And verse 4 says, being made so much better than angels, as he hath by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. The people of that day were familiar with angels and the appearance of angels. But the writer wants them to know that Jesus was far superior to the angels because he was the Son of God. And whereas the angels brought messages, they brought messages that God had sent them to bring. They were not of themselves. For unto which of the angels said he at any time, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. God himself spake to the angels, letting them know that Jesus was his son, and he was an heir to all things that the Father possessed. We had been told back in Samuel that the Lord would raise up David's seed and establish his kingdom. And as we looked up through the 42 generations, we can go all the way back to David, letting us know that Jesus is the fulfillment of that promise, which was made way back in Abraham's day. The theme of this particular lesson lets us know that there is a calling for everyone, that even Jesus had a calling. When he left heaven, he had a calling to come and redeem man so that we could be reunited with the Father. And Jesus' message is important because he is God's Son and greater than any angel or prophet. And he's also God himself. So these two writers let us know that heritage is important. The physical heritage as well as the spiritual heritage. At some point, we like to trace our ancestry sometimes to see to whom we are connected. But we ought to want to look through our spiritual ancestry as well, to make sure that we are connected to the Son and to the Father. Because we all have a calling. We all have a job to do. Some lessons are for inspiration, some are for instructions, and some are for information. The purpose of this lesson, we believe, is to instill in us the knowledge to want to know more about Jesus. And as his human representatives, we ought to want to know more about Jesus. More about Jesus would I know. More of his grace to others show. More of his sayings, fullness see. More of his love, who died for me. We ought to want to know more about Jesus. More about Jesus, let me learn. More of his holy will discern. Spirit of God, my teacher be, showing the things of Christ to me. We ought to want to know more about Jesus. For more about Jesus in his word, holding communion with my Lord, hearing his voice in every line, making each faithful saying mine. More about Jesus, more about Jesus, more of his saving fullness see, more of his love, more about Jesus who died for me. God bless you.